Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Off-Road Diesel Annual Reporting Webinar for 2026. My name is Catherine, and I work for the Off-Road Implementation section at the California Air Resources Board, or CARB. Before we start, I do want to remind you that the off-road regulation was amended in 2022, and the amended regulatory requirements took effect beginning January 1st, 2024. On January 3rd, 2025, the United States Environmental Protection Agency granted CARB an authorization request for the 2022 in-use off-road diesel-fueled fleets regulation amendments. An advisory informing fleets on the next steps and impact on compliance requirements is available. Please note that enforcement for requirements that needed authorization began on October 22nd, 2025. The amendments include requiring the use of renewable diesel, R99 or R100, introducing new contracting requirements, phasing out the operation of the oldest and dirtiest off-road diesel vehicles, incorporating new low-use requirements, expanding the ban on adding some dirtier vehicles, and providing flexibility options to encourage the adoption of zero-emission technology. Under the renewable diesel requirements, there are cold weather exemptions available. They are for those fleets in areas with specific temperature requirements. If you have any questions, please reach out to the Doors hotline at 877-593-6677 or send us an email to doors@arb.ca.gov. We also have recordings of the informational sessions on the 2022 amendments available. The webinar today is designed for diesel equipment owners who have already entered their vehicle or equipment information into the Doors system. If you are just starting your compliance journey and need to learn about the regulation requirements, please check out CARB's free 504 training, which provides detailed information to help fleet owners understand and comply with the off-road regulation. For more information on the training, you can find it on the training and events page in the off-road zone. If you are completely new to the Doors reporting system and the off-road diesel regulation, I would suggest that you continue to follow along, but you will need to complete the initial reporting process first. You can find the initial reporting user guide in the off-road zone under Doors resources. Today, I will be providing instructions for navigating and completing the annual reporting indoors. There are three sides of Doors: a side for off-road diesel vehicles, a side for large spark ignition LSI vehicles, and a side for zero emission forklift, ZEF. We will only be going over the off-road diesel side of Doors and its annual reporting requirement for the off-road diesel regulation today. As a reminder, the zero emission forklift or ZEF regulation, which was approved on June 27th, 2024, affects state and local government fleets that own large spark ignition forklifts. ZEF imposes restrictions on the operation of LSI forklifts, with phase-out requirements extending through 2038. Please visit the ZEF webpage for more information. Webinars on reporting for ZEF will occur in March and July 2026. Okay, let's get started. In this webinar, we will cover vehicle ban and phase-out requirements, annual reporting requirements, changes from the 2022 amendments, logging into your Doors account, reporting changes to your fleet, reporting annual hour logs, submitting the renewable diesel affirmation, and then submitting the electronic responsible official affirmation of reporting, ROR, or the hard copy ROR. Vehicle bans and phase-out schedules. First, let's go over the more stringent requirements from the 2022 amendments. In effect, only Tier 4 final, which are generally newer than model year 2015 or cleaner engines, can be added to your fleet after your deadlines have passed. Tier 0, 1, and 2 engines will have to be phased out of operation over a 12-year schedule, with large fleets having to remove Tier 0s starting on January 1st, 2024, and Tier 1 engines by January 1st, 2026. Medium fleets must remove Tier 0 vehicles by January 1st, 2026. I would encourage everyone to click on the link for the added vehicle restrictions and tier phase-out requirements fact sheet to see the full banned vehicle and phase-out schedules applicable to you. Annual reporting requirements. As part of the reporting requirements for the off-road regulation, fleets are required to report updates to their fleet of vehicles annually. As a reminder, updates must be made within 30 days of taking action such as purchasing, selling, and retiring. This is a requirement for all self-propelled off-road diesel vehicles with a maximum horsepower of 25 or greater that do not meet any of the exemptions stated in the regulation language. You are also required to submit a form called the Responsible Official Affirmation of Reporting, or the ROAR. It's an affirmation that your fleet is reported accurately and is meeting the requirements of the regulation. The ROAR is submitted annually between January 1st and March 1st, and the new renewable diesel affirmation is to be submitted as part of annual reporting as well. Failure to submit the ROAR by the deadline or not submitting the ROAR at all could lead to potential enforcement action. If you miss the deadline, it's important to still submit your ROAR as soon as possible. We do date stamp received documents, but if for some reason you are not able to get all of your reporting documents submitted by March 1st, you should know that it is much better to submit your reporting documents late than never submitting them at all. Even if there are no vehicles reported in your Doors account, if you have an account and a company still set up in Doors, you need to submit a ROAR. You're affirming that you have no off-road diesel vehicles currently, but you may have these vehicles in the future. Therefore, you want to keep your account active. And if you had any credits from previous actions on your fleet, these may still be used for future compliance. Next, I want to go over the regulation language itself. This is text pulled from the off-road regulation. To summarize, it says fleets must review and update their information and submit their ROAR. Section 2449G2. Annual reporting and responsible official affirmation of reporting. All fleet owners must review and update the information submitted under Section 2449G1 annually and submit the information in Sections 2449G2A through C to CARB by the reporting date of each subsequent reporting year. The reporting date for all fleets is March 1st. Fleet owners must report information regarding each vehicle subject to this regulation as it was on December 31st of the year prior to the reporting year. Logging into Doors. The first step to annual reporting is logging into your Doors account, and this is often the most difficult part of the whole process. People lose passwords, old staff has left the company, and so you have no idea what it is. I will show you first how to log into Doors and how to retrieve your password if you cannot figure out what it is. The main point I want to stress on this topic is you do not want to create a new Doors account. Creating a new Doors account would result in your vehicles being in the system twice, and you ultimately become out of compliance on the fleet that comes out of date. So to log in, starting from a search engine like Google, you can find the Doors login page in a couple ways. One way is to search CARB Doors login, and the first things that come up will most likely be associated with the login page, or they can give you a good jumping off point. The login page is also easily accessible from the Doors off-road zone, which is this one right here. It also has a lot of useful resources for off-road fleets. The login page is this ssl.arb.ca.gov URL. It's a good idea to bookmark either or both of these pages. So once you find the login page, you'll simply enter your username and your password. But if you don't have this information, you can click Forgot your username and or password. And if you know the username and the email address associated with the account, enter the two fields here and the password will be sent to your email address. If you don't know your username or email, you will either need to call the Doors hotline for assistance, or you can complete the changing contact information form. It's important that you fill out this form with the correct responsible official name and signature, and check the correct box if it's the responsible official. If the old responsible official has left the company or you're not sure who might have been listed as the responsible official, you need to include a letter on company letterhead stating that the person who signed the form is the new responsible official. You can bypass sending a letter if the new responsible official has the email domain that corresponds with the business email domain. For example, if I work for ABC Construction and my email address is Catherine@abcconstruction.net, all I have to do is complete the form correctly and email it to Doors. If you have a generic email such as at Gmail or at yahoo.com, you'll have to attach the letter along with the form. Alternatively, this form can be completed by the designated official. The designated official is a person who's been designated by the responsible official as another person who represents the fleet. There's a separate form to assign a designated official, which we can go over later in the webinar. If all else fails, call the Doors hotline and we can tell you what steps you need to take to retrieve your login information. Often it's as simple as confirming some information in your Doors account and we can provide your login information. Again, please do not create a new account just because you cannot remember your information. Okay, now that you've logged into your Doors account and before you submit your ROAR, you need to make sure that your Doors fleet is completely up to date in the system. This is what the ROAR form is all about. You are affirming that you have reported everything correctly in Doors. There are several things you will want to review before you submit the ROAR. Your account information, your owner information, vehicle information, annual hour logs, adding new equipment and selling or retiring old equipment, compliance with the new tier phase-out schedules, and new record-keeping requirements. So from the Doors home, the first thing we are going to check is our edit account page on the top right. This is where you can assign a contact person. The contact person can be anyone associated with the account, just someone who has access and who will be checking his or her email for notices. Basically, whoever is in charge of keeping the Doors account up to date. Also, there is a table at the bottom of this page if you want to change your password. Next, we're going to go to the owner information page. So let's go back to the Doors homepage. Click our fleet name, and then click owner information. Check all of these fields for accuracy. Go down all the way and make sure that all of this information is up to date. Right here, you can designate the responsible official. If there are any changes, you can just come into the account and change it yourself if you have the login information. This is important. You want to make sure all of this information is correct and up to date. Let's define the responsible official. The responsible official is the person ultimately responsible for the vehicles in this fleet. That will be the owner or partner of a sole proprietorship or partnership, or the president, secretary, treasurer, vice president, or similar person in charge of a principal business function. For a public agency, it means either a principal executive officer or a ranking elected official. For those that are reporting on behalf of someone else or a company, the designated official form might be something that you will want to submit to us. It's a form that you can have your responsible official sign, and then going forward, the designated official will be able to sign on their behalf for forms such as the ROAR. This form and the changing contact form are available on the Off-Road Zone website under Doors Resources. So indoors, the next thing we're going to do after we make sure our owner information is correct is check out the vehicle and engine page. Scroll to the bottom and review your list of vehicles. Ask yourself some questions. Have you sold or retired any vehicles on this list? Have you purchased any vehicles that are subject to the regulation that have not yet been added to Doors? You need to make sure this list of diesel off-road vehicles matches what you own in real life. To sell or retire a vehicle, click on the sell/retire button and enter the date of sale, then click sell/retire. Or to add vehicles to your fleet, either enter the equipment identification number, the EIN, if it already has one. An EIN is what you see off-road equipment labeled with. It will have a red label with a white number and letter combination, or it's a green label if you're in a captive attainment area. To add a vehicle that does not have an EIN, for example, a new vehicle or one from out of state, use the second, more extensive table. You'll need to enter the vehicle and engine information that applies to your equipment to generate an EIN that Doors will provide. I want to mention that there are two compliance flexibilities available for the addition of zero emission equipment to your fleet. The first flexibility is for adding a single zero emission vehicle to your fleet. Adding a zero emission replacement of an older, dirtier piece of equipment will allow a tier 1 or tier 2 vehicle. Adding a zero emission replacement of an older, dirtier piece of equipment will allow a tier 1 or tier 2 vehicle subject to the phase out schedule a 2-year phase out delay. The second flexibility is the zero emission technology application, or ZETA. The ZETA requires the replacement of 15% of your diesel equipment with zero emission equipment by 2030, then the replacement of 50% of the fleet by 2035. Doing so will allow a fleet to be compliant under an alternative compliance pathway, delaying the phase out of older equipment until 2035. Okay, now that our Doors fleet is completely up to date, we are going to check to see if we need to report any hour meter readings. Some fleets will have vehicles that have been designated as low use, which means operating less than 200 hours in California for the year. Please note that as of January 1st, 2024, the year-by-year low use designation is no longer available, and the only low use provision is permanent low use. There are also fleets that operate vehicles that run more than half the time for agricultural purposes, but not completely 100%. Both of these designations require annual hour meter readings to be submitted in order for them to be considered exempt from the performance requirements. You have to report hour meter readings if you claim one of these special designations, and you will not be able to submit your ROR if you have not submitted the required information. If you do not have these designations, you are not required to submit hour meter readings indoors. So back indoors, we're going to select the low use page at the top of your screen. On this page, we can see which of your vehicles have low use designations. And before we start reporting our hours, I do want to spend some time going over the low use designation because we get a lot of questions and there can be some confusion around reporting hours. First, I want to clarify that you are not required to place vehicles in low use. It's just a compliance option that some fleets choose. Another thing I want to clarify is that you are only required to enter hours for vehicles designated as low use or ag. If the vehicle in your fleet is not designated as ag or low use, we do not require you to submit hour meter readings. Next, let's discuss the different types of low use: permanent and permanent outside. Permanent low use vehicles operate exclusively in California, less than 200 hours per year, while permanent outside low use vehicles operate both inside and outside of California, and they are used less than 200 hours per year while in the state of California. When a vehicle is put into either of the low use options, that vehicle gets excluded from the fleet average calculation. Fleets may also earn Best Available Control Technology or BACT credits from vehicles in the low use designation. But if the vehicle exceeds its less than 200-hour limit, the vehicle must be removed from the fleet entirely unless it meets the adding vehicle requirements. Also, please remember if you are designating a vehicle as low use, it must have a functioning, permanently affixed, non-resettable hour meter. You can report an hour meter replacement here using this button for an hour meter that breaks. If you still have vehicles in year by year low use, this is the page where you will change them. You just select the new low use designation in the drop down, update the effective year, and then click Save Low Use Designation. Now to record the hours, we click on Low Use Hour Meter Readings. Here we will enter the hour meter readings from 2025. Using the Select a Vehicle drop-down menu, we'll select our permanent low use vehicle first, and then compliance year 2025, and then click Go. Here we'll enter the hour meter readings from 2025. One thing to keep in mind is that the previous year's ending hours should always be the same as the beginning hours for the year we're reporting for. So the end reading for 2024 is going to be the same number as the start of year meter reading for 2025. You'll enter your start of year reading and end of year reading. Leave the emergency hours blank if you did not use it for an emergency, and then click Submit. Also, make sure to enter your hours for both columns before you click Save, otherwise you'll get an error. Next, we'll do our permanent low use, or outside low use hours. We'll select our other vehicle, select 2025, and then click Go. I want to mention that 2026 is an option for permanent outside hour meter readings so that a fleet can keep track of their hours throughout the year. Keep in mind, we'll only need the 2025 hour meter readings to complete the annual report this year, and 2026 is just available as a tracking tool. You'll notice reporting permanent outside low use hours looks different from permanent low use. This is because you have the ability to submit multiple entries in the event you entered and exited California multiple times throughout the year. So click on the Report Hours button, enter the dates, and the hours, and click Submit. In case you made a mistake, you can delete an entry by clicking the blue Delete button. And if the vehicle did not enter California, you can check the box up top, enter the beginning and end of the year readings, and click Submit. The same if it entered California but did not exit. There's a box to check for that too. Before we move on to the next section, I'd like to mention some of the requirements for low use. The 2022 amendments expanded the reporting requirements to include keeping a date-stamped photograph of the engine hour meter reading in your records. Fleets must maintain this photograph in accordance with the regulations' record-keeping requirements, and it must be available to CARB when requested. Click on the link to the low-use fact sheet for more information. Next, indoors, I'm going to show you how to report agricultural hour logs. First, we click the agricultural page. Enter the hour meter readings for 1/1/25 and the ones from 12/31/25. Then in the third column, you'll enter the number of hours the vehicle was used for ag purposes. And in the fourth column, you'll enter the hours used for non-ag purposes. Please always fill out this fourth column of non-ag hours, even if it's 0 this year, so that doors can perform the calculation correctly. This last column calculates the percentage of hours that this vehicle was used for ag. Remember that vehicles must be used more than half of the time for ag purposes. So if this number is 50 or less, you did not meet the 51 to 99% agricultural designation because you're telling us that you use this vehicle only 50% of the time for ag purposes. If this number is 100, that means you only use this exclusively for ag operations. Please note that vehicles only ever used 100% of the time for agricultural operations as defined in the regulation do not need to be registered indoors. Last, let's click Submit to save. Our next requirement is the renewable diesel affirmation. Fleets must fuel equipment with R99 or R100 renewable diesel and retain receipts for 3 years. Some fleets or vehicles may qualify for exemptions. A renewable diesel or RD affirmation has been added to the EROR process to report how you are complying with these requirements. You can find more information about the renewable diesel requirements at the linked fact sheet. Here indoors, the renewable diesel affirmation can be accessed at two locations. One on the top row of buttons named RD affirmation next to the EROR button, or from clicking on the link or renewable diesel affirmation requirement within the EROR checklist page. Here, you're affirming compliance with the renewable diesel requirement. When you have read and understand the renewable diesel requirements, you may check the first box. When you are ready to request a renewable diesel affirmation personal identification number or PIN, you will check the second box. Then click Request Electronic Signature PIN and proceed to form. This PIN will be sent to the emails of the responsible and designated officials, so make sure that these emails are up to date. If you run into any issues accessing this PIN, please call the hotline and an agent can help you. While on the renewable diesel affirmation form, verify that the information in part 1 is correct. Then check the first box if you are using renewable diesel in all applicable vehicles. If you are a rental agency and are in compliance with the renewable diesel requirements, check the second box as well. Or if you qualify for any of the renewable diesel exemptions, such as captive attainment, clean technology fleet, unavailability of renewable diesel, or cold weather operations, check the appropriate boxes. So retrieve your PIN from your email. Type in your PIN and then click submit. It's going to ask if you're sure, just click OK. Remember that in addition to submitting the affirmation, fleets must also comply with the record-keeping requirements of keeping your receipts for 3 years. Submitting the EROR. Now that you have ensured your fleet information is up to date, you have submitted any required hour logs, and you have submitted your renewable diesel affirmation, you are ready to submit your ROR. First, I will instruct you on how to submit an electronic ROR in your Doors account. After I go over this process, I will show you how to submit a hard copy ROR form. This will be your method if you are unable to submit electronically. We highly recommend the electronic submittal of the EROR for quicker processing. The EROR follows the same general steps as the renewable diesel affirmation. Complete the EROR checklist, check the white box, request a PIN, retrieve the PIN from your email, enter your PIN, and then click submit. After you've submitted your renewable diesel affirmation, there will be a yellow highlighted link in the middle of the screen to continue to the EROR. You can also access it anytime by clicking on the green eRoar button at the top of the screen. This is the roar requirements checklist. This is a checklist of requirements that you must complete before your eRoar. Green checks are good, showing completed items, and red X's are items that need to be completed. You will likely have a red X here in line 1B. I clicked on, all you have to do is click on the embedded link to run the compliance snapshot and take a look at it. I tried to run the compliance snapshot early because it takes time to open up due to all of the calculations it's running. If you have already reported your hour meter readings and still have a red X in line 4A, it is likely informing you that your vehicles are still in year by year low use. Please go to the low use page and change the designation of your year by year low use vehicles as it is no longer an option. Review this row requirements checklist, and once all of the boxes have green checks, we can proceed. Check this box next to the statement affirming you are reporting electronically. Click Request PIN and proceed to eRoar page. Oops. A PIN number will be emailed to your responsible and designated officials' emails that are listed indoors. Once again, please call the hotline if you are experiencing any issues receiving the PIN. Check that your information is accurate and go get your PIN from your email. Then enter your PIN and click Submit. Click OK. Your ROAR is completed for the year. If you want to print or save your compliance certificate, you can click here or click on the Other Tools page at the top of your Doors account. Click on this third link, Certificate of Reported Compliance, then click View Certificate. Here you can view and print your certificate. For a project involving the use of vehicles subject to the regulation, the prime contractor or public works awarding body must obtain copies of this valid certificate of reported compliance for the fleets and subcontractors that are listed in the contract. So now that we've submitted our electronic ROAR, we'll go over how to submit the hard copy form. Keep in mind, you only need to submit the ROAR either electronically or hard copy, not both. You still need to log into your Doors account and make sure that your information is up to date. You need to review the owner information and make sure your contact information is up to date. You will also need to review your vehicles list and update if you have sold or retired any vehicles, or if you have added any vehicles to your off-road diesel fleet. Again, we highly recommend submitting your ROAR electronically while you are indoors for quicker processing and assistance. When you submit a hard copy ROAR form through mail or email, CARB staff manually checks your Doors fleet online and makes sure your information is complete. Your ROAR form will be rejected, and CARB staff will respond by email if you have filled out the form incorrectly or if you have not completed steps in your Doors account. Please note, processing of ROAR forms submitted via mail is slower and fax is unavailable. The quickest way to reach us is through email or phone. To get the hard copy ROAR form, enter your Doors fleet and click on the eRoar page. On the bottom of this page is a PDF link. You need to make sure that you fill in every section of this form and have the correct person sign this form. A majority of hard copy forms are denied the first time around, usually because they checked the wrong box in part one, have a signature from the wrong person, have the incorrect reporting year, or they check yes for the captive attainment fleet when it does not apply. Captive attainment means areas of California that have better air quality Therefore, those fleets are treated as small fleets. If you are captive attainment, you need to designate it as such on your owner information page. If the checked box does not match what is on your doors account, we will deny the form. For more definitions, you can also check out page 2 and 3 of the form. I also want to clarify that the annual reporting year is 2026. We understand this can be confusing because you are reporting your information for 2025. However, the reporting year refers to the year the roar is due, so it will be 2026 this year. When you have completed this form correctly, you'll sign it and email it to the door's email address. We would like to mention that we are now accepting digital signatures. But none of you will need to do this form because you will be pros at the e-roar. If you need more resources to help with your annual reporting indoors and roar requirements, you can visit the off-road zone. And before I wrap up here, I would like to take a quick look at the off-road zone. Here we have our doors resources, which includes user guides and reporting forms. There are regulation FAQs here on the side. And back on our home page, this last box is the training and events page where you can find different trainings and register for them. Also, down at the very bottom of the off-road zone are some helpful links, like the doors login, EIN label vendors list, fleet average calculators, and the off-road certification database in case you were looking for executive orders. Here, you can also sign up for email updates to stay up to date on any changes to the regulation. And this concludes the Doors 2026 webinar.